What the fuck did I watch?
So, Carson, we've talked about this in the past about how we both just love going to the movie theaters. Well, turns out other people don't like going to the movie theaters. October was like one of the worst box office Octobers like in history for whatever reason. And I think we both, I guess, do actually know some of those reasons, but I'm curious your insights as to, before I give my 2 cents, what do you think the reason that people aren't going to the theaters as much, especially this October, as opposed to previous Octobers?
Well, I mean, it's a problem that's been going on since COVID. This isn't anything new. I mean, this is a post-COVID world we're living in, which people didn't like going to the movies, so they watched everything on streaming because they couldn't. And now streaming is the most viable option. So that's one major issue. And I wish it's funny because every time a big movie comes out, people are saying, "Oh yeah, theaters are back. Everybody's back in theaters. It's great." Not really. I mean, movies do fine if they're big budgeted. I think the only one on the list that I'm seeing here, like for this year, that did well, that wasn't like a big budget movie, and I don't even know if I can credit it, is Naza 2, and that's it. And I don't even know if I can credit that because that still is technically a franchisable movie to a certain extent. Sinners actually would be the first one that isn't a franchise that on its own did okay and was like a standalone story, and it was even still that was writing off the director's coattails and the actors that were in the film. It's not like it had no merit of, oh, this is a film that's coming from the ground up. It's completely new. It's got nothing, like nobody knows what's going to happen with it. Like it had all the tools necessary to be a good film, and it succeeded. And then you look at other films on this list that are like, they just don't do as well, or they're not doing as well, you know?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I don't have October's box office specifically pulled up right now, but looking at the movies that released in October, the number one is Tron Ares. It brought home a little less than $70 million. The next one is Black Phone 2, which is sitting at about $65 million. Then you have Chainsaw Reze Arc, which is about $34.5 million as it stands now. And then literally right under Chainsaw Man, do you want to? Well, you have the list pulled up, so I can't make you guess. It's made like only $400,000 less. It's a Taylor Swift party showgirl showing in theaters.
What are you
Like
are
that's
you
the
looking at like
state
what's
of theaters.
are you looking at what's currently in theaters, or are you looking at the entire
No,
list?
I'm looking at the Box Office Mojo by IMDb Pro domestic box office for fall of 2025 list, which is typically what I view as more of the accurate list. So we have Tron Ares, which, like you said, it is a Disney production. It is the third film, but there's also other Tron properties. This has been a big build-up movie. You have Black Phone 2, which is the second in a highly acclaimed horror movie franchise. You have Chainsaw Man, which is a really big popular anime. And then you have Taylor Swift. Like that's like the top movies from October, and one of them's not even a movie.
Oh, you're looking at the October list. That's what I was getting at. I was like, huh?
Yes.
I'm looking at the entire list. I'm just like going through this. I haven't even seen. I know it's on here. Oh, there it is. Tron Ares 26. I was like, where is it? I'm like, it's somewhere here. It's holy. Wait, Tron Ares is number one, and then Chainsaw Man's below it, or is Chainsaw Man above it for you on that list?
For October specifically, it's Tron Ares, Black Phone 2, Chainsaw Man, and Taylor Swift.
Why is Chainsaw Man above on the world? Oh, the worldwide. That's why. Because it's got everything combined. That's
Yeah,
why.
I'm looking at the gross. I don't know if IMDb is worldwide or not. I think it is, but
I'm also looking at Box Office Mojo. Um, I have never used this before, so this is kind of really weird to say. But like the bigger issue I will also say with films nowadays and box offices and this and that is studios will give a butt ton of money to a specific film, and then that film will just fall flat in its face. Or, in the rare case, they'll give like no money to it, and then it booms and creates them money, which is obviously the best case scenario. That's what you want. But the issue is, studios are going to give films like Captain America, Brave New World, a ton of money. And I don't actually even know if that film made its budget back. Like, I don't.
yeah.
It made money, but I don't know if it actually, like, based on like what the actual film, like what they pumped into it, I don't know if they got anything back out of it. I'm looking at a bunch of these films. I don't know which ones actually made money, which ones didn't. Beyond, obviously, I know for a fact that Jurassic World made its money back because I know I knew for a fact that Superman made its money back, and that's above it. So clearly that made its money back. But like everything below that, at least, because I don't know, like, and these are all films that people are pumping budgets into that people want to see. Okay, here's one, The Long Walk, which is a phenomenal film. You and I both saw this. Is currently on track to be the 50. Is that number 50 right now for grossing?
For the fall specifically, it's number 7. Now the fall is September 2nd to November 6th, which is what, 3 days ago. But
Sure.
The Long Walk's only made $35 million. And I don't know
So
what the budget for that is, but that's not a ton of money. Granted, it's probably more than enough for a movie like The Long Walk. You don't have a lot of big name actors other than Mark Hamill, who probably shot all of his stuff in a single day. Like,
yeah, I mean, I know the two leads are actors who've done stuff before. Episode oh, but this is like a problem here. This is a this is the re-release of Star Wars Episode 3. That is above The Long Walk. I love Star Wars Episode 3. I'm not saying anything bad about it, but it's a re-release. That is a film that's already made money 20 years prior. They re-release it and it's doing better than a movie nowadays. I'm not saying that like is a thing that can or can't happen. I'm sure it does. But like nobody goes to theaters to watch films like The Long Walk anymore, even though they're good.
yeah, one
Phoenician Scheme. Granted, that's also just because I think Phoenician Scheme is a film that is an desired taste. You either like that type of directing or you don't. There's no in between.
Well, like,
Um,
in the comments section on our TikTok about the Chainsaw Man movie, there were some people in there that were like, "Oh, it's not, like, number 1 your number 1 favorite movie of the year. Like, what other movies came out this year that were even rated a 6 like, even better than a 6 out of 10?" And I'm like, I listed in the comments, I think I listed, like, 10 movies that I'd put in. Probably we don't rate movies on the channel, but I would put on par, if not, like, Chainsaw Man is my number 3 favorite movie of the year right now. That means there's 2 movies above Chainsaw Man as it stands right now. And that is just telling that this has been a really strong year for movies. Again, Neja 2, The Long Walk, maybe one of the movies this year that we're going to talk about on this podcast, maybe is going to reach my top 10. You have movies like Ballerina, which isn't the best movie ever, but was still a really good time. You have movies like Caught Stealing, another really good movie. There are a lot of movies that came out this year. Hell, Elio, the Pixar movie, that was a good movie. Like, people complain that there aren't any good movies, but people aren't going to the theater to find out if movies are good movies. Another complaint that I have heard, and the reason why people say that they don't go to the movies more often, is the price of tickets, which I think is totally valid. Ticket prices are ridiculously expensive.
it's justified.
However, if you really want to go to the movies, I have AMC A-list. I pay roughly after tax $25 a month. I can see 4 movies a week. There's 3 to 4 weeks in a month. I've already seen 2 movies this weekend. I saw like 2 movies last weekend. I saw Chainsaw Man 3 times. All it cost me was that $25. I know Carson has the Regal Unlimited and it's about the same price, if not a little cheaper, a little more expensive, I don't know. And that gets Carson unlimited movies, like unlimited movies, granted only standard format, but yes, ticket prices individually, if you only want to see a single movie, can be expensive. I highly encourage people, if you have an interest in seeing movies, and even if you see, this is my logic, one IMAX ticket costs me an entire month's worth of AMC A-list. And I can see, I see Dolby Atmos films. Like, if a movie's not in IMAX, I see it in Dolby Atmos. Like, I can see it in any format that I want, and it's $25 a month. We are not sponsored by AMC or Regal, by the way. I am just so passionate about how good of a deal it is, and we need to get more people into theaters because if people want to say they're not making good movies, well, the reason they're not making good movies, if that's the logic you want to say, is because they don't have the budget for people to go in. People aren't going into the theaters, giving them the budget to make these movies. Like,
Well,
it's
and
kind of like a catch-22 situation.
here's another issue, and I'm honestly I'm calling myself out here when I say this. There are films that come out. There's two things here. Let's use Tron Ares as an example. Tron Ares really only was seen by the diehard fans and a few extra people, at least for the most part, from what I've seen in reviews online and this and that, other than like critics who went and saw it, because obviously fans love it, critics hate it. That's just how it is. Um, Tron Ares is a specific example. Is it just because of like, if you're only going to have diehard fans go to see it, and it doesn't like resonate with anybody else from the trailer to want to go and see it, you're clearly not going to get any money, because as much as a fan base is large, it's not going to do enough to make its money back. And I say that because there was a film, we're talking about one of the films today that I'm even using the example of, I thought was going to be a complete pile of garbage. I didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. I was never even really wanting to see it. The only reason I did was because it was on the schedule and it was a big budget movie and we could talk about it. We can't always talk about the good things. There has to be bad, was my mindset. And it came out. And I'm not saying it's the most incredible thing since, sliced bread or whatever, but it's certainly a fun time. And it's a lot better than I was going to give it credit for. And it has an interesting idea going with it for a franchise that I kind of grew up with. I know it's a bit of a hint and spoiler and foreshadowing for the review, but I'm using it as an example to say there are diehard fans who go to see their respective franchises and they hold their franchises up, but nobody else is interested in seeing that franchise. Tron had its diehard fans. Spoiler alert, Predator has its diehard fans. And Predator's in the worst camp because Predator has had many more movies than Tron has, and has had a whole legacy and is now in a universe of alien movies, which those are somewhat better than the Predator films most of the time. The Naked Gun reboot, which was a really funny movie, didn't get that many people. Why? Because it's a comedy that nobody's going to care about, and except for the people who had respect for the original film. And that's it. That's just how it is.
I mean, I think to that point, I think people just need to push themselves out of their comfort zone more often. Like, to be honest, I'll say, until we started this podcast, there were a lot of movies that I just would have no interest in going to see. I would not have seen Predator Badlands. I would not have seen, spoiler alert for the other movie that we're talking about, Bugonia, if it wasn't for this podcast or it wasn't for AMC A-List. But I'm so happy that I have. Caught Stealing is another example. Even something like Amnesia 2, I probably wouldn't have gone out and seen of my own fruition, just because before starting this podcast, I was very much okay, it is the big Marvel movie, it's the big Disney movie, it's the big Pixar movie, and that's all I care about seeing. I've opened myself up to a whole new world of movies. And yes, we are in a privileged position to be able to put on this podcast for 0 listeners, 5 listeners, whoever. We don't really care. We're here to do it. 100,000 people to yell at us over our Chainsaw Man takes.
Yeah,
But
really.
it is a privileged position, but at the same time, I think that if more people just took a chance on movies that they didn't think they would be interested in, it would genuinely just open their eyes to a whole new world. Like, not to quote Disney here, but it really would. And I think that it's just, if you really want to use the price of movie tickets as the excuse, I think AMC A-List or Regal Unlimited are phenomenal ways to get yourself into theaters more often. And if you can't afford that, go see a single movie. Pick a movie. AMC does half off matinee performances or like half off Wednesday night performances. Like,
Sure.
go see those movies. It's like $8 to go see a movie, and it could change your life. You never know.
Right. Right. I don't know. There's that. There's a whole mixture of things that go into it. But truth of the matter is, films nowadays are dying, and streaming also doesn't help either, because it was much worse during COVID. But most everything dropped on streaming, and it never dropped on in the theaters, or they may have only had like a week long limited release because COVID was happening. It just creates a massive problem, and it creates this thing that is really inescapable for films nowadays, which is people don't want to go to the theaters anymore. They'd rather stay at home and wait for it to come on streaming or this or that, ticket prices being too high. It's one big crock pot of just a mess, and there's no right or wrong answer in it.
Well, and I guess it's like, I love seeing movies in theaters because, like, I have a decent TV, but at the same time, my TV is not 70 feet wide by 70 feet tall with a surround sound speaker system. And
Right.
I can guarantee you, like, for instance, the difference in enjoyment between a Black Phone 1 and a Black Phone 2, just from watching Black Phone 1 at home and Black Phone 2 in the theaters, I could feel the difference because I'm in pitch darkness. I am surrounded by other people. I am in a surround sound audio system with a giant screen in front of me. That completely changes my perception of the enjoyment of the performance, sometimes in a good way and sometimes in a bad way. But I think that's the fun of going to the theaters.
Sure. Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. But it's the world we live in now, brother. It's all it is.
Yeah, I know. I hope that if you take anything away from this, like, please go see more movies in theaters. Push yourself out of your comfort zone. Try one movie a week. Go to a Wednesday night performance. I'm gonna chill out for the theaters
I would
until we can
say
get like
AMC Regal, please sponsor us. He's selling you
dude,
so hard right now.
I would take that sponsorship in a heartbeat because I genuinely want more people to go to theaters. But what I also want more people to do is to listen to our podcast. Because what's up, Nimrods? It's your boys back with another episode of the Nerdy Nimrods podcast. I am your host for today's episode, Brandon, aka Parrotfish, here with my forever co-host
Carson, aka Juggernaut.
Today, we have two very special films to talk about today. One, Predator Badlands, and the other, one that neither of us were planning on even watching. But I pushed myself out of my comfort zone and went to the theater. We were supposed to talk about Star Wars Visions today. I watched this movie and told Carson he needed to watch this movie, and now we're talking about it. That is the power of just pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And that movie is Bugonia, Emma Stone's newest film. That will be our two topics of conversation. Again, there will be timestamps in the description. Big spoiler warning. I'm going to say it now and I'll probably say it again, especially for Bugonia. If you have any interest in seeing Bugonia, go in as unspoiled as possible. I think you will have an absolute treat on your hands to spoil my thoughts a little bit, especially if you go in unspoiled. But same with Predator Badlands. There are some things that I think are really fun in there to avoid spoilers, but that one a little less so. But again, there will be timestamps in the description, YouTube, Spotify, whatever have you. Skip around as you so please. But before we get into the movies, Carson, how you doing? It's actually been a while, funny enough. Not since we've talked, but since we've recorded. Because you
Yeah,
went to Vegas.
went on my trip, came back slightly richer. Or I guess not as poor as I was. Won some money, had a good time, ate some food, hung out with people. It was a good old time. No complaints from me.
Fair enough. Yeah. It's been a weird week, as always, for me. You know, every week is a weird week when you live the life that I live. But, can't complain. I did it to myself. So, in order to talk about something more positive, we didn't actually talk about this before we started recording. Which one do you want to start with, Begonia or Predator?
I would rather start with Predator just because I feel like,
Okay.
oh, God. So I start with Predator. Yeah, start with Predator. I'm confident in that.
Okay. Well, I will pass it along to you. Give your concise thoughts. Again, there will be spoilers here. Just give your concise thoughts before we get into our back and forth on Predator. Predator Badlands.
Yeah. So I a bit of history for me. I've ever since I was, I think maybe like 13, have loved the Predator movie, the original one, the Predator movie. I loved the original Alien movies. Those are like the first few, I guess, horror films that I grew up watching. Technically, they're considered horror, even though I think you could get by on the first Predator being an action movie, even though it's got the horror tropes in it. I grew up with that universe. And when I found out that both were connected, flipped my lid. And what's even better for a 13-year-old boy, oh my God, Alien versus Predator is rated PG-13. What could be better? Now and today, it's really not that good. It's actually a really bad movie. But as a kid, it was the most exciting thing to see Alien and Predator beat the shit out of each other. I watched Prey a few years back. I didn't end up watching Killer of Killers. I just never got time to. I want to, especially because it did get good reviews. I was always very hesitant on another Predator movie, and I didn't care what they had to throw at it, what story they were going to tell. Predator is more so than Alien, very risky with sequels. You had Prey, which was pretty good, and you had your first animated Predator movie with Killer of Killers, which was just completely different. Other than the original Predator back in, I think it's either 70s or 80s. I can't even remember. It's old. Other than that film, and really Prey, at least the ones I've seen, those are the only good Predator movies. Usually the rest of them are complete hunks of garbage. That being said, walking into Predator Badlands, it's good. It's perfectly watchable. It's serviceable. It's got some fun callbacks, and it really what surprised me more was it connected the Alien and Predator universes more than what I thought they would. Um because especially when your movie's titled Predator Badlands, you don't think that it's going to have anything to do with Alien at all. But they really incorporate it very nicely, at least the universe world building aspects into this film that kind of help guide the story along. It makes you like, especially if you've watched the Alien films, and I'm not going to try to spoil those because my God, go watch them, Brandon. They are incredible. At least those first two are wonderful. Um, the film itself plays a lot in really it plays a lot in the aliens world, but the predator is in this movie if you really want to look at it from that perspective, because this film plays with the android, I don't know, automaton, I don't know what you want to call them exactly, the Wayland Corporation. Let's just go with that. It plays with the alien Wayland Corporation robots, automatons, whatever you want to call them, in this universe, and it plays with just the predator. But what I love about this and what they do differently, at least from every other, is the predator is the main character, which is exceedingly, extremely risky, because the predator is somebody who doesn't talk in the film. If you look back to the original film with Schwarzenegger, I mean, he only shows his face for like 5 seconds, and that's it. That's the film. Like the original Predator film is, quote of the film, it's about a predator hunting army soldiers on Earth. That's the point of the film. And so when you when you're following the actual creature that was hunting these people initially, it's a little nerve-wracking because you don't know what kind of story they can tell. Is the story that they told a 10 out of 10 slam dunk, written masterfully? It is the biggest masterpiece ever. No, but it's serviceable and it does it enough to where you can actually get invested into it. It's fun. There is a, for lack of a better term, there is a heart to the movie that kind of keeps it going. Um, and the practicality of the Predator makeup, which has been the long-standing thing of this franchise. I don't think there has been a film yet where they've done CGI for the Predator. I think except the 2018 Predator movie. It looks incredible here. It looks absolutely outstanding. They always do a good job with the practicality of the suit and the face and making it work. Um, I didn't pull up any of the actors' names, but the automaton girl, I forgot her name, which doesn't really help, but forgot her name. Uh, she's good in the movie. She's really the only vocal piece in the movie outside of Predator, who you have to read his text for and whatnot. Okay, look, all in all, to say it's filled with good action, an okay soundtrack, mind you. It actually isn't the worst I've ever seen, and a story that you can kind of get behind. It's different. You haven't seen it before, but it's also not like any of the other Predator movies where where the franchise just completely went off the rails and it's stupid and it's horrible. It's something you can actually enjoy. Point being, I enjoyed Predator Badlands more than I thought I would.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Also, they're called synths. They're synthezoids.
Synthezoids, whatever. There's so many different names for robots nowadays. I always get confused on like what they're called now.
Sorry, I just wanted to jump in and correct you there before I
No,
give my thoughts.
as
But
long as you know what they're called, that's all that matters.
also, I also did not have any of the character names pulled open. However, I will probably do that after I give my initial thoughts, or if you
I
want to pull it up now.
I
Um,
I can pull it up now. I will say though that sorry, before I let you go, that is one thing about this film. Sometimes the character names are extremely forgettable, and
I
that
believe, if
is a
if I'm not
problem.
mistaken, I believe the main girl's name was Thea and her sister's name was Tessa, if I'm not mistaken. I might have gotten those swapped, but if I'm not mistaken, it was Thea and Tessa because they both started with T's. And I know one of them is Tessa.
You're
But
probably right. Go
anyways,
ahead.
that aside, so Predator Badlands is my first movie in the Predator universe. I've never seen an Alien movie. I've never seen a Predator movie. I've never seen a Alien versus Predator movie. They were just never something that I was even allowed to watch as a kid. And when I was old enough to watch them, it wasn't something I was super gravitated towards. So I am not someone who's going to be able to talk all that much and understand the connections between, oh, this is from the Alien movies, this is from the Predator movies. So I'm coming into this with a fresh pair of eyes as just a casual movie enjoyer. And I casually enjoyed this movie. I think that Predator Badlands is a really fun time. It is far from a perfect movie. There are some very, very impressive visual effects in here. There is also some very, very good practical effects in this movie, especially with the Predator's face itself, which I believe is mostly practical. There is also some weaker CGI that I was a little disappointed by during certain scenes that I'll talk about later when we get into our back and forth. The movie was a lot funnier than I was expecting it to be, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. I think that a lot of the humor felt like a let's just throw everything at the wall and hopefully stuff will stick. And some of it stuck, and I laughed, and the theater I was in laughed. And some of it just felt annoyingly unnecessary. However, I do understand that that might have been what they were going for between our synthezoid and our predator dynamic. I do really like the action. There was some really good action set pieces in this movie. The story is whatever. I did like the way that this movie started out, where there is not a spoken word of English throughout the entire like first 30 minutes of the movie, I think, until we meet our synthezoid friend. And that then picks up into the actual like dynamic and the core heart of this movie. Another thing that I really liked was the core themes of this movie. It is very much a nature versus technology movie, and that is kind of brought to fruition by the ending of this movie being the predator taking all the natural elements of this world and going and defeating the over-engineered synthezoids with whatever he could find. Because the movie does an amazing job with establishing shots on this unbelievably gorgeous world, all these different creatures, all these different landscapes, and then you cut to this basically military base that is very clearly encroached on this natural environment in a very negative way. And I think that is just such a really nice core element of the movie, but is never explicitly stated. So it's always like just there and present. But I like that. I like that they didn't go overzealous and that they were still focused on the family found family element of the predator, the synthezoid, and our monster friend, especially since the movie started out with our predator friend losing his only family member that he ever cared about, and then ends with him getting revenge on the person who took the life of the only family member he's ever cared about. So it was a really good start and finish, and I like how they kind of it was a very self-contained movie from my perspective. I will say I don't love that there was a little bit of an end credit setting up another movie where it's like, "Oh, who's that? It's my mom." Okay, I didn't really need that, but we'll see if they can pull off another really good movie. Overall, though, as a casual Predator fan, I think that this is a very fun time. You don't need to go in with any pre knowledge. Maybe it'll enhance your enjoyment, but you really don't need to go in knowing anything else. And I think that is the sign of a really good movie when you don't need to overbog your movie down with references and pulling elements in from what 17 different Alien versus Predator movies. So yeah,
Sure.
overall had a very fun time with this movie and I'm very excited to talk about it.
Look, and again, like I do want to preface this. This is because you brought it up and I didn't, and so I'm really glad you did. This is a film that you don't need the predecessing films to go into and watch and enjoy. Like you can watch this as a standalone film. Does it help knowing certain things and does it kind of attach you to certain things more? Yeah, to a certain extent. Again, knowing that the synthezoids are and when I make you watch the alien films at some point, you'll come to find that the synthezoids are from the alien franchise. That's actually initially where they're from. You'll figure out how they're used in that franchise. But here they're it doesn't matter what corporation they're from. It's just cool that it is the alien franchise and that you can use it here. Point being, they there's some different things they do with this film. One of which is beneficial, but I also see them doing it in another way in which I'm like, I would have preferred that. Like most notably, The Predator franchise and the Alien franchise is historically known for its rated R movies. Like those films are mostly rated R. Even Prey, I'm pretty sure was rated R. I don't remember Prey being PG-13. I could be wrong, but I remember it being rated R. If you want to look that up, go right ahead while I'm saying
I'll,
this.
I'll look it up while you talk.
But Alien specifically is most notably for being R. The only time it was ever PG-13 was that first Alien versus Predator movie, which wasn't great, but they made it work, and it was more of an action film rather than a horror film, which is what these two films are based off of. Here, it's solely action. And the issue I have with it being PG-13 is I know that this film could be a lot more violent and a lot more brutal, especially in that final sequence when you have the Predator going. And I get that they're synthezoids, I get that they're androids. I don't need to see blood everywhere and this and that. However, that being said, again, when you watch the Alien franchise, you'll know that there's a bit more to them than just being metal robots. Like they're not the Terminator. They have like organs and things and stuff that you can make it look more violent. I wish that it's like a minor nitpick. I wish this film was rated R so they could have made the violence more prevalent. They could have made it bloodier. They could have made it a bit more just violent. Like that's what I want. When I go into a Predator film, I want to see the violence. I want to see the blood. I want to see limbs flying. I want to see this. I want to see that. Again, this film was made back in the 70s or 80s, somewhere around then. But even that film is extremely violent. It's over the top violent. There's gore. It's weird watching a Predator movie and not getting that, especially because this film also sets up the violent tendency and violent nature of a Predator. You would have thought it could have been a bit more violent. Again, it's a minor nitpick because what they gave us is fine. I just know that with the budget that this studio has and with the fact that the other films have been rated R, this, in my mind, there's no reason it shouldn't have been rated R. There also have been films that have been released there. It's not nudity, it's not language. It strictly is the violence that makes it rated R. I think that's perfectly fine. I don't see there's a reason why that can't happen. You know what I mean?
I mean, I definitely know where you're coming from. Again, having not seen the other movies, I can't talk to how much of an enhancement the violence has, but there was still some violence in this movie for
Sure.
sure. There are still limbs flying, there are still graphic moments. It's just that, and I actually heard this from an interview from, I believe it was the director of the movie, before I even went into this movie, that they still wanted to hold to that violent nature. The way they were able to skirt the rated R rating, though, was instead of red blood, it's green blood from the Predator, and
Yeah.
then the synthezoid didn't have any like actual blood. And so I think that I can't say if my enjoyment would have really been enhanced by switching out the green for red and adding more violence, because I don't think that really adds to the core story that they're trying to tell here. Again, I don't know what the Predator movies are like, but this seems very story focused as opposed to a typical just for fun action gory ripping apart fest.
I see it differently than that. I do see it as an action gore fest. It's just not gore. I see this as one action set piece to the next action set piece and the next action set piece. And the reason I say that, and there is story involved, but I don't see this as a story focused movie. If it was a story focused movie, the action would have taken a back seat compared to the action. And even in the beginning, when they're setting up the story, there's action. You know, it starts off with oh my gosh, what's his name? Deck. You have Deck fighting his brother. It starts off with an action piece. It slows down for a second so that, then Deck's brother can fight the father. And then his brother dies and this and that. Like it still is one action set piece to the next, but there's a story to be told within it. I would not say the story is the center focus of this. If it was, it would have been a completely different movie. Also, if your Predator is the main character and you have a story focused movie, you better be telling one good story because I don't see myself looking at this alien creature for 2.5 hours. you know, it doesn't work in my mind. I liked the story. I thought it was serviceable. I thought that's the best word to use for this. It was serviceable. It wasn't groundbreaking. It didn't do anything. And honestly, I said lack of a better term earlier for heart. It's not like I even really felt something. Like there wasn't like an emotional moment that made me feel really happy about it or sad about it, but it was something that was serviceable enough to get the character from point A to point B to get them to where we need to get them. Because even when he comes back at the end and he goes and he, tries to not tries to when he kills his father and he avenges his brother, it's not like I felt anything like, oh my gosh, he overcame it. He did this. Like I was so proud of it. Things just kind of happened. And I was
I mean,
I was blown away by it, but there wasn't anything that was like emotionally satisfying or resonating with anything that happened in this movie. But the story was serviceable enough to where I could understand why it was happening and it's justified for why it's happening. But the movie again, it's just hard because it's a predator as your main character. It would have been different if it was like a human or something, but that would have been its
I
own
mean,
set of problems.
I disagree a little bit that it's just like set piece to set piece, because there are quite a few slow down moments in the movie that aren't action set pieces. You have the campfire scene, which ultimately is the biggest of those slow down moments. You're coming off defeating the alien parasite that came out of the trees and gearing up to go to the synthezoid base that they got attacked by the big monster at. And you have the campfire scene where we're opening up with the synthezoid. You have our little friend over here who I also, that was a twist for me. I didn't predict that he would be the child of the big monster thing. I thought he was just some comedic relief character. And then that added
Yeah.
a little bit of an additional heart in there and also did kind of act as a little bit of a plot device, admittedly, for me, where I was like, okay, cool. He spit on them and now they're family, but then also protected them against its parent. And okay, cool. That wasn't as necessary for me, but I think it does kind of further the ending of this movie where Deck starts alone with his only brother and his only family being killed, and then ends the movie with a newfound family with a sister and a monster brother. And there are multiple steps along the way where it isn't just a night and day he switches over to love. No, multiple times in this movie, he still actively pushes against the idea of this found family coming in, and he doesn't want to accept them. It takes a lot for him to warm up, and we get a lot of moments of watching him making that decision to warm up to them. I don't, it's not like a light and day switch where you're going from action set piece and he doesn't like them and you're going to next action set piece where he does like them. You can see the natural progression of things through the slower story moments and even in some of the action moments.
I hear what you're saying. Like I'm not discrediting that those moments aren't there. They're there. I just don't think there is like high quality is what you're describing them. I don't think they like those scenes gave enough for me to care. It justified the reasons for why they're happening and it justified the story. And again, that's why I'm not mad at it necessarily. I just know that it could have been done better. I don't think that it's nearly as good as it could have been. But it did just enough to where it's like, okay, it's fine. It's whatever. But I'm certainly not like seeing all three of them together at the end of the movie, and you mentioned the post-credit scene and whatnot, doesn't get me excited for a sequel. Like they like cool. They're cool characters. You go to you it's like when you walk out, it's different for us because we were younger, but it's like walking out of Guardians for the first time. Nobody knew who those people were. They didn't care about them. I guess you had a little bit of world building things for the most part. I guess because you saw the Thanos and that's Gamora's sister. It's a little different, but I'm using an example that's like close enough to where we can understand this. We walked out of the movie not we didn't know who those characters were, but we fell in love with those characters because of the way they were written, because they had the moments and they also down and each member was fleshed out really well. Here, it's really hard to do that. And it's not done nearly as well as Guardians was. Again, I'm not saying that Guardians isn't a different type of film. And if I really sat here and thought of it, I probably could think of another example that is better for it. But I'm using that as an example because truthfully, nobody knew who the Guardians were at the time. But we all fell in love, and now they're a household name after that film. Not because of the action, even though the action's incredible. Not because of this, not because of that. It's because of the way they were written and the way the story was told and how each character was fleshed out. How Drax was fleshed out, how Gamora was fleshed out, Rocket especially, uh, obviously Star-Lord. And I guess if you were comparing characters, Groot is probably on a similar wavelength to Deck in a certain sense because they're two monstrous creatures. That Groot obviously only says one thing the entire film, and Deck, you can never really understand him unless you read the words on the screen. You get what I mean. Um, and so it's like this film again, it did enough to where it's justified for me. It's just not nearly it's not enough to make me sit here and go, I totally want another film. I want to see these characters again. But for the film they set up, it's fine. It's serviceable, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I like the depth of it a little bit more because the other story element that we have in here that I touched in my short like initial thoughts that I'll touch on to kind of like end out the story segment of the movie because there are
Yeah.
other things with the movie I want to
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about
yeah, yeah.
was that nature versus technology message that was very core to this movie because again one of my big positives is there are some gorgeous terrain and establishing shots and it sets up a lot of interesting different creatures and different like just natural elements with the blade grass and all of that is very cool and then they all pull it back together for when you go from an establishing shot of this beautiful ecosystem into a literal military base that is encroached on this beautiful ecosystem and
Sure.
deck now coming in and using those natural elements to defeat the technology and obviously that's a commentary on reality and how we are encroaching upon our own ecosystem and I just think
Sure.
that I liked that plot element because it never felt forced down your throat. But if you were watching with your eyes open, you could definitely see that that's the message they were going for. But no one ever
Sure.
said, oh, they're destroying the environment and ecosystem. No, the core element that they did talk about was the family element.
Yeah, and I guess that's one thing where I will give this film credit is, and this is a problem I have with most films nowadays. If you have an agenda that you're trying to push, don't make that the center focus of your movie. It can be a part of your movie and it can be a thing that you're pushing, but do not make it the center focus of your movie because a lot of the times that's what people will come out thinking and they won't remember even if your film is good. They'll just remember, my God, they spent that entire time to talk about this or talk about that. And it just makes them, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. It makes them sit there and makes it seem like they're going to leave thinking, oh, what did I watch that for if that's all they were going to talk about? It's just, it's a weird thing. But a lot of films do that nowadays. This film is different where it literally told the story of, found family or finding a family with those around you if people don't accept you. But then it also told the message of, like you said, it's talking real world knowledge about how we're treating our ecosystem
Yeah.
and how
Yeah.
how they're treating theirs. I guess the only because like a good example of this one, and this is like in my opinion the prime example, but that's good old Wally. You remember Wally? You remember how
Dude,
that's
Wally is one of my favorite movies of all time. I
the
love
story
Wally.
of two robots that fall in love. That's the center focus of that movie, while the undertone is the environment and how we are
Hmm.
relying too much on AI and we're ruining our world. That is the whole point of that movie, and that's part of the reason what makes that film so good is that you can get behind the message because that's not the focus of the movie. It's really focusing on Wally trying to get through this whole thing with Eve. That's the point. I love Wally. That's my mini rant about Wally and how much I love it.
Oh, I love Wally too. My first childhood bedroom was gold and blue, and my first comforter that I can remember, I shouldn't say childhood, this was like probably like 10 years old, was a Wally comforter. And I had that Wally comforter into my adulthood. Like, I love Wally.
Yeah. And so, yeah, look, that's just how it is with films today. And I think that Badlands does a good job of balancing it. And that is one positive that I will absolutely give it is that it balances it really well. Um,
Yeah.
I,
One of
I,
the
wa-
negative I wanna get some of the
yeah,
negatives out of the way because there are some other
yeah.
positives I wanna talk about because there is other really good things about this movie. One negative I wanna go ahead and get out of the way because I don't have much to say about it. It's just kind of like a brief and it's a positive negative. The ecosystem is gorgeous. The predator looks amazing with his practical effects. Even our main synthezoid, who is named, it is Thea. Thea, our main synthezoid, looks really good for most of the movie. There's also some really bad practical effects. All of those copy paste synthezoids that are just the generic, like, same dude 50 times, they did not look great. And I don't know if that's what they were going for. I don't know if they wanted them to just look bad copy paste, but they looked like bad copy
Well,
paste.
I don't know if it's practical or CGI at this point. Because I will say something that this film does do is blend CGI and practical pretty well. But the issue is, if your CGI does stand out really bad and your practicals like blended with it, you don't know what's practical and what's real anymore. Like, for instance, the beginning of the movie, there's a really great blend of the alien planet and then the ship that they're on with the Predator makeup and the Predator outfits. That's blended really well. It's believable. You really believe that that planet exists. And then there's a shot later with all the synthezoids, and you're like, what happened here? This is a more natural world where you could have shot on location. What's happening here? Why does this look bad? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely like I don't know. I'm not complaining because I think the effects in this movie are genuinely impressive most of the time. That's
Sure,
just when the bad effects come in, it stands out a lot more than like bad effects would stand out when all the effects are bad in a movie.
sure.
So when some of those moments happened, it didn't take me out of the movie, but it was like a ooh. I can see you spent like $50 million on that mountain right there. You spent 5 buckaroos on that CGI right there, and I can tell.
Yeah, no, again, you can pretty easily determine like what was like you can tell where they put their money in, and it may not have been in those moments. There are a lot of moments like that where, and look, you're gonna hate me for saying this, and I'm asking you for the love of God, don't clip this. I still don't think it's nearly as bad as some of the things that were in Tron, though. I mean, truly, some of the things in Tron for me were just really hard to watch and look at. Not like they were ugly, but they were just like it's similar like the ending. Like I mentioned during my Tron review, the ending of Shang-Chi, where so much was happening at once, it just made it hard to look at sometimes. I don't think it's nearly as bad as that. That being said, it ain't good either. It's don't I'm not giving Predator Badlands an award here for that, but I do think it's better than that. I do think it's better than Tron a little bit there.
I have to bite my tongue. I think Tron looks better.
Look,
I
if that,
think
no, I'm not gonna blame you here. If that's what you think, by all means, that's okay. I'm not gonna blame anybody for thinking that. Honestly, it probably is a coin flip to some people. I think Predator Badlands in some shots is better than what the entirety of Tron Ares did give us, though. There is again, Tron. It's also unfair though because Tron Ares only had like a few real, like at least in the digital world, only had a few uses of practical sets. And if that, it was mostly like a blue room where they just stood there and everything else around them was like CGI.
I
It's
mean
not
that
like it was a
is the point is that they're in a digital world. They're going to use digital effects. If you use practical effects to make a digital world look realistic, that's the dumbest thing in the world. Like I looked it up by the way afterwards because you said, "Oh, some of the old Tron movies were practical." I have so many behind the scenes things of just of them in blue screen. Like every Tron movie is blue screen movies, and there are realistic elements mixed in there. Like the motorbikes are practical in this movie, and I believe they're practical in some of the other movies. But every Tron movie is digital because it's a digital world, and it shouldn't look practical. It should look like effects. But I'm not here to rant about Tron because I'm already heated enough as it is
no,
about
and
Tron.
and I know what scenes you're talking about. That's different from what I was talking about. Point being, here it's based in a realistic world or an alien world, but it's in a realistic environment. Like if the creatures are CGI
Yeah.
and the creatures look a bit off, which sometimes they did, that's one thing. If the environment's off, it's a completely different thing. And I actually don't think the environment itself was that off. Like they didn't.
No, the
They did
environment
a
was never bad. It was my only real noticeable bad was the copy paste synthesoids that just
yeah,
looked digital, and
yeah.
then some of the creature effects during certain moments weren't my favorite. But other than that, like overall, it was definitely like above serviceable. Like it was
Yeah.
good effects.
No,
But I
that's
just
what I
wanted to talk
thought.
about that because, like I said, it wasn't that much of a negative, but it also wasn't like a glowing everything was perfect. The
It's not
other
a glowing positive here. Sure.
the other thing that is along the same merit that I also talked about in my short thoughts is the humor in this movie. I understand what they're going for, and there were times where I laughed out loud. There were also a lot of times when I was cringing and I was like,
Oh, sure.
I don't know if I'm supposed to be cringing here, like if this is a bad writing situation or if this is the point of Thea's character is to not understand human interaction or interaction with other creatures and she's going to crack a bad joke and be too much.
Sure.
I don't know, and the fact that I didn't know is what made me cringe in those
Again,
moments.
I look, other than Prey, even the original Predator movie has jokes in there. But granted, I think the original Predator movie gets a bit more freedom in that because it is a cheesy horror movie from the 70s and 80s. Even though I vastly prefer that original Predator movie to this movie. Some people will probably disagree with me. I just love the practicality. I love how it's shot on location. I love a lot of what they do with that film. Um, it's really darn good and it's a lot of fun. Um, Here it's I don't know. I agree with you in a lot of aspects of it. I don't know. I'm trying not to compare it to the original film too much. I'm trying not to.
I mean, you
It's just
can, but at the same
it's
time,
just
I'm not gonna be able to talk on that because I haven't seen them,
it's just it's
so
yeah, it's just hard because you haven't seen it. And so it's hard for me to compare it to it while at the same time trying to explain it because like, oh, I can say this, but you don't know that. Again,
well, and I think another thing with this movie is you talked about how there are a lot of connections, like, I guess, the Synthezoids being from the Alien universe and some other connections. Overall, though, this is its own movie for the
yeah,
most part. Like,
you can
if
you it's
if there
again,
was
it's different.
no well, yeah, if there was no other Predator, Alien, or Alien versus Predator movies, you could still go into this movie and have a good time. So I
Sure.
don't think that there's, like, a need to compare, but I can understand the want to compare because it is still connected to that universe.
There's one thing I will say though. This film would have done significantly worse if that was the case.
I
Because it would not have had the
I could
famous
probably
Predator
agree.
name. It
I
would not
think
have
I
had the
yeah.
famous Predator name to latch itself onto. There weren't, other than Ellie Fanning, who isn't like the most popular actress ever, didn't really have a name attached to it. Doesn't have a director that's really attached to it. Like it didn't have anything really attached to it beyond the name of Predator. So again, like I talked about with Tron, like I've talked about with multiple different franchises. Like I'm honestly, Avatar's probably going to be different. I guarantee you a lot of people are going to go see Avatar. Even my grandpa, who in his 80s said he wants to go watch Avatar, which I'm very surprised about. Even he enjoys Avatar, and he's not like a fan of the franchise. He just really liked the first two movies. He likes going to the film movies in general. That's something. That's a different thing. Predator pretty much was lifted up by its name. And that's where it's going to get its money back to. And I hate that I'm saying that because this film is a lot of fun. You know, if this had come out during the time of like Infinity War, I guarantee you and me would have gone to see this a bunch of times with a massive amount of friends, and we all would have enjoyed our time. We would have had a great time with it. The issue is again, wrong time, wrong place. Movies nowadays are not going to get as as much money as they used to. Look,
Yeah,
look,
I will say, even as someone who doesn't have any nostalgia for the old movies, I can definitely agree with you that this movie would not have done as well and probably would have not like gotten any attention to it if it wasn't attached to a pre-established franchise, which is no commentary on the quality of the movie itself and just more to do with the reality of the movie world right now.
sure, right. Um, Look, at the end of the day, it's a good action movie. It's not like a Die Hard where it's almost all practical and it's, you know, got a great story with great characters and it's not a slam dunk 10 out of 10 action movie, but it's a fun time. You can go to this movie and you can be swept away into the world. You can have a good time with it. There's a lot of badass action to go into it.
Oh
The
yeah, like
characters are
the
fine.
action the action definitely carries a lot of the movie in this. Like
Yeah,
the mix of technology and natural elements is really cool in the movie. The like I don't know, like the fight against an undying regenerative beast is such a like
sure.
in my opinion, pretty dope concept. And
Sure.
then you have Starmie, the starfish from DC, coming out of the trees to attack them, which admittedly was my first thought when that thing started coming out of the trees.
But it's a perfectly fun time. And I implore that if you're just somebody who wants to have a good time, you want to be blown away by by some good action, get a bucket of popcorn, relax. Honestly, this is a movie I could even say take your kids to. They'll have a good time with it. Okay, take your
Or teenagers too.
your
Preteens and
teenagers, your
teenagers.
preteens and teenagers who can't watch a rated R movie yet. Like, this is their type of movie. It's a fun time.
One thing that I
Um,
would be interested in is because this is PG-13 and it definitely is a little bit different than those original movies, this could have the potential to be something, and maybe this was the plan, that preteens and teenagers could go and see this movie, and then it already hooks them on the world and the characters and the concepts, so that when they're old enough and they do release another Alien movie or Predator movie, they want to go and see the other movies, or they want to go home and ask their parents for permission to be like,
yeah.
hey, mom, I just saw this Predator Badlands movie with my friends. I want to see what this is all about. Like, are there any other movies? And then their dad will be sitting in the reclining chair, beer in hand, and be like, "Oh, sonny boy, let me tell you about
It
the Predator movies." Like
it's like the
every dad in the world has seen it. Probably every Predator movie, Predator, Alien movie, whatever has.
it's the one meme clip of Bryan Cranston and Malcolm in the Middle whenever like the screen like blackens out and he just shows up to his son. He goes, "Son, you know once you start, there's no going back."
Yep.
And it's just I've seen that you've been used so many times in recent memory. Well, in Alien, this is my last thing I'll say on it, but like Alien Ross came out last year, which was rated R. That was a kind of a return to form for the Alien franchise. The Alien franchise, until really the second one, and even the second one had it, was a lot more of a horror franchise. It had horror roots. The xenomorph was scary. This film kind of brought it back to that, where I'm not gonna lie, there was some CGI in that movie. Most of the film actually is practical. It's shot on practical sets. I think like the space area, like when you look out the window and it's obviously space, that's not real, obviously. But most of it is practical, except for like a handful of face huggers and some xenomorphs that are just kind of in the background. Most of it's practical. But that was really good. It actually, I think that movie, I think breached my top 10 for last year. Like I really enjoyed Alien Romulus. The issue I have with Predator Badlands being PG-13 is if they ever want to do anything with the Alien franchise again outside of what they did with this movie, you can't bring them down. You kind of have to go up to their level because that's where they're at. You kind of got to meet them. It's like the Deadpool conundrum. You could easily bring Deadpool down. That's been done before, but it was not nearly as good as when you had him up here. So when he does show up in Avengers, I'm not saying I want Avengers to be rated R, but you kind of have to give some leeway here. Like maybe you let him drop the only F bomb in the film and make some pretty crude jokes that just get past the bar minimum. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I can understand that. Yeah, I see where you're coming from.
But I don't
But
know. Good time, fun time.
yeah, I think overall Predator Badlands worth seeing. I saw it in IMAX because I see every movie I can in IMAX. Great IMAX experience. Pretty packed crowd. I would say it was about 75% full theater. I saw it on a Friday night. So, I do think people are going to see this movie. I'd be curious to see the box office numbers at the end of the weekend, see if it's like actually giving a return, but I think again, like Carson said, if you have teenagers who are interested in fun action movies, I think this is one that's worth a watch. But one that I wouldn't take your teenagers to, but is maybe a good time, who knows, is another movie that we watched, the newest movie in Emma Stone's repertoire, best known for, I don't know, many roles, a lot of roles. She's done a lot of things in a lot of different categories, and this is the most different movie I've ever seen her in for sure. But Carson, this is a movie that again, neither of us planned on watching this movie, or at least I know I didn't. And I had a free Wednesday. I saw this on a Wednesday. I had a free Wednesday afternoon, an AMC A list burning a hole in my pocket, and the devil on my shoulder going, Begonia's been doing pretty decent. You've seen some reviews come across TikTok, and people have been saying the movie's kind of decent, but I didn't know anything about the movie, even after hearing people say it was pretty good. And so I watched the movie, called up Carson, and went, hey, Carson, you should watch Begonia. I didn't even tell him I liked it or not. I just told Carson to go see Begonia. So, Carson, did you like Begonia?
What the fuck did I watch? What the hell? Here's the thing, this isn't like an abnormal movie for me to see. Like I've seen films like this before. And let me tell you, it's one of the better ones that I've seen. Like again, Beau is Afraid came out a few years ago. Eddington came out this year. Of like the weird, wacky, insane films that like I feel like have come out recently. This is one of the better films. For starters, this is just an impeccably well written and well acted role. This is for the most part Jesse Plemons' movie. Like he's the like clear cut, like this is his movie. Emma Stone's kind of just in it. Granted, she's in it a lot, and she's in it probably the same amount that Plemons is. But this is Jesse Plemons' movie. If you don't know who he is, he's a guy who has done many roles over the year. He married Kristen Dunset of Mary Jane fame from the original Spider-Man movies with Sam Raimi. If you didn't know, he's in one of my favorite shows of all time, Breaking Bad. He plays a character in the 4th and 5th seasons of the show. And he's made his way around in Hollywood over the past few years. He's never done anything stand out, but he's done enough to where it's like, oh my god, it's Jesse Plemons. He's a good actor. He does roles here and there that you really like him in. 2023, he was in Killers of the Flower Moon. Love that movie. He played the what is essentially the good guy in the film, the guy who's trying to help the sheriff, whatever you want to call him. He was in the Jungle Cruise movie, which I don't think is all that good, but he was in it, and it was really fun to see him in that. Last year, I think he was in I forget which film it was. I think it's called I Just Thought About It. What was it? It's some movie with Margaret Qualley and Emma Stone also. I think Willem Dafoe was also in it too. But that came out last year. I heard that was okay, and he was in that. He makes his way around. This is 100% his film. Emma Stone's also in this movie. We'll get to that in a minute. Really well acted. This is one of my favorite performances I've ever seen from her. Not my favorite. Still goes to Poor Things. Last year, Poor Things was a movie that she was in. She was the lead. I love that movie. I loved everything she did with that. I thought it was phenomenal. There's other actors in it. There's one actor who I've never seen before, who just is like the heart and soul of the movie. He kind of steals it for me, and meets a very tragic end that in the theater had me go, I saw that coming, but that really hurt when it happened. It really hurt. I will say that's the one thing I will say about this movie is I did kind of, not everything, but I did kind of predict what was going to happen. I didn't know how, but I knew somehow that Plemons was going to be right. I knew that because the thing I love about this film is that it starts off and it doesn't right away tell you if Plemons is crazy and is just kidnapping this woman who he thinks is an alien, or if he's actually right and she really is an alien. It doesn't really let you know that until about a good half to the movie when she's finally like, yeah, I'm 100% an alien. And even then you still don't know until like the last few shots of the movie. You're like, oh my God, of course. But like I knew somehow Jesse Plemons' character was going to die. I didn't know if it was going to be at the hands of Emma Stone or if the cop friend was going to shoot him whenever he found out that there was just a woman in his basement. And I knew somehow, some way aliens were going to come into play, but I didn't know if it was going to be Emma Stone as an alien. This movie was a bit more predictable, but I think that's just because I've seen so much crap at this point that it's easier for me to predict things in movies like this. This is not a movie for the faint of heart. If it's not your thing, it's not your thing. Is this movie in my top 10? I don't know. We'll have to find out later. It is really, really good, but we'll have to see if it breaches that later. Brandon, what are your thoughts?
So Oscar bait is a concept that gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
It's the concept that a big name actor who has never had an Oscar before and really wants to get an Oscar is going to put together a movie that is tailor made for the Oscar approval board. It is a movie that has good acting, really wonky and out there story with a really strong, typically political themes, and they cook that all together, stir it in a pot, and shove it out so that the Oscar board will give them an Oscar. Bugonia is an Oscar bait movie. However, I don't think that's a bad thing because I think this is still a really good movie. Oscar bait sometimes gets a bad rap because it is that mixed mosh pot of everything the Oscar board wants to see. But at the same time, that still can return a really good movie because the Oscars aren't always going to give movies that are pieces of crap an Oscar. Not saying it doesn't happen, but when you have a movie that is as well acted, I mean, like Plemons knocks it out of the park. But an actor that you didn't talk about that I think is wholly deserving of an Oscar is Aiden Delbus. This is Aiden
Yeah.
Delbus's first ever role. He plays a special needs character and is special needs himself.
Yeah.
And he was the heart of this movie for me. And the
That's
events
right.
that
Yeah.
unfold for him are my favorite part of this movie by a country mile. The Emma Stone stuff really worked for me as well. And I loved this is for me her best acting performance, and a lot of the acting that I loved about her performance was very subtle. It was very much in her facial structure and the movements of her body, and that being a tell for certain twists that are to come that I picked up on a little bit, that I think is just so geniusly put together. I think that the big twists in this movie, and it's not just the one at the end, there are multiple big twists in this movie, are executed flawlessly, whether you predict them or not. I still think they have enough power behind that twist that you can sit there and be either in awe or, in a lot of times, in absolute utter disgust by what's
Yeah.
happening on the screen. This is
Yeah.
another example of a movie that has a very strong message behind it, but it doesn't really make that message clear until the very, very end of the movie. And I love that
Yeah.
because you think the movie's message is one thing for the entirety of the movie about this absolutely crazy guy who lost everything and is just gone completely off the walls, needs to be in a mental asylum, and is kidnapping and torturing people because he has nothing else going for him in life. Turns out that that's not the case, and he was actually right. And that reveal, even if you could predict it, still hits really hard because he's already died thinking he was wrong. And I think that that is just such a devastating end to this movie for everyone involved. And there is no happy ending to this movie. This is the saddest ending to a movie I've almost ever seen. And when I walked out of this movie, my first thought was, this is going to be a very divisive movie because of that ending and the way that it can subvert a lot of people's expectations. And so if you walk out thinking, I hated that ending and I can't believe they backtracked on anything, I can't blame you. But for me, I think after having a few days to think about it, it really set in of it recontextualized everything that happened in the movie in such a way that only enhances how sad everything that unfolds is for
Yeah.
our main characters. It is a very small scale movie. There's like 4 named people in this entire movie, and I think that that works so well for
Yeah.
building the tension of this movie and what's going on, and it allows you to focus on the important moments. And I just think overall, it is a phenomenally put together movie. Will it reach my top 10? I haven't put it on my top 10 yet. However, there might be some movies, if I look at it, this would be better than that are on my top 10. I think it's just going to take, honestly, more time to digest this craziness of a movie.
So here's the thing, and this is the biggest con I'm gonna give the movie. It's the fact that and honestly, I once it's revealed and once you understand what's happening, and after the big twist at the very end, this movie, the first time around, is incredible. This is a film that will lose its rewatchability factor just based off the shock value. It's not a lot. Again, this movie has some really incredibly written dialogue, and the scenes between Clemens and Emma Stone are so good, but they're fully pretensed on the idea of you have no idea what's happening. You have no idea who's right. You have no idea who's wrong. I'm not saying that things can't change and it'll change your opinion. Like when you watch the movie the second time around, you're gonna know, oh, Clemens is right. She's clearly evil in some way, this, that, whatever. It'll make sense in the moment, but once you lose the shock value of this film, I do think that it loses some of the rewatchability of the film, and so that kind of hurts it a little bit for me, especially when I look at films like The Long Walk. We know where it ends, but The Long Walk as a journey from start to finish is something that I can watch, and I could constantly go back to rewatch it. I know it's funny saying that because months ago we looked at each other and said, I'm going to need like another 3 months to like heal and then I can watch it again. But I can find that a lot more rewatchable than this film. And that film is also, if not more devastating than this film is at times.
I'm going to disagree with you only slightly. I think that this is a phenomenal movie to watch twice. I don't think you need to watch it any more than that. The only reason why I say it's a good movie to watch twice is once you're going in completely not knowing what's happening, you are watching the events unfold, and then the ending of this movie completely recontextualizes the entire everything of this movie. And then you watch it a second time with the preconceived knowledge. And I think you can enjoy picking up on things that you didn't originally realize were leading you to the twist, that you didn't know were leading you to the twist because you just
Sure,
didn't know where the movie was going. I think that
sure.
I'm not saying that this movie is the most rewatchable thing of all time, and you're gonna be able to watch it 15 times because it does rely on a lot of shock value. However, I do still think that watching this movie twice could still be a very enjoyable experience because you're now able to go in and I guess overanalyze every moment of the movie with the knowledge of where it's going and be like, oh
Yeah.
my God, I didn't pick up on this the first time that Emma Stone did this. And it was because she was an alien, or it was because she was trying to lead the conversation this way. That I think that could be a fun experience, but I don't think more than twice is all that necessary.
Well, and also
So,
I never really saw, like, again, you you look at films like, it's such a weird example to use, but like Back to the Future. You watch that film over and over again, and it's a film that you can find separate different things when watching it over and over again. Things that they're building to, you're like, "Oh, that's a callback to that." Or honestly, here's a better example. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the whole movie is based around how it's a massive, basically two-act setup and a small third act, a whole sequence where everything comes back into play. The flamethrower, the dog, this, that. And it doesn't hurt the rewatchability factor because you see the build, you can rewatch it, and you're always finding something new that plays into that finale. I I can't say if you're right or wrong. This honestly would take me needing to rewatch it again. I didn't see that many, if any, moments in this where, okay, they are definitely like, that's a nuanced thing that I could pick up on the second time around, like after this was revealed. And I only say that because I had predicted, again, some way somehow Clemens was going to die, some way somehow the aliens were involved in this. And so I was like, in what way is this going to be misleading? In what way can this build to? There wasn't really anything there to like back that statement up as far as what I saw the first time around. You very well could be right, and there could be, but there's not, in my mind, at least there's not that much that you can really see it. If there is, there will be, but it's not like there's multiple things at the very least.
I think the only thing is I can't really agree or disagree any further because I have only seen the movie twice or once. But in terms of like the twist, for instance, I had inklings that they were gonna go certain directions, and then okay, what I'll say, at a point in time, I predicted that Emma Stone was going to be an alien. However, there was also things that they did that made me rethink my assumption that she was going to be an alien. And that's why I think the twists really do work, because I think the point of the movie is to be like, no, she's definitely an alien. This is what the movie is supposed to be. And then immediately go, no, she's actually not an alien. We're trying to make you sympathize with these other characters. And kind of forcing you to flip flop back and forth in a way that even if you do predict it, you'll start second guessing yourself, or at least I did every few minutes on, oh, well, I thought that this was going to be what they did. And then they did this, but then I thought it was okay. And then the big twist happens. You're like, okay, I was right at one point in time, but then I also second guessed myself. So I can't say that I was right the entire way through the movie. At least that was my experience of watching the movie.
Again, there. I'm not saying that the twists aren't, the twists work. I'm just saying the rewatchability factor is hurt by it, which that is a very valid argument. Um,
I think the biggest one, and I just so I was talking about like the acting and things like that.
yeah,
God, it the hardest scene to watch and the biggest. This is one that I did not predict whatsoever. I think this is the only one that realistically I don't think you could have predicted, at least the way that it went down, and that's Dawn killing himself. That scene is the biggest for me shock value plot twist, and that is what marks the unbelievable escalation that is the rest of this movie, because that is holy gory. It is very, very gory. And that
sure.
is the first. We have the torture scene with electricity before that. That is the first really hard scene to watch. But this is the first, like, oh shit moment that then leads into Teddy getting his head blown off and the events that unfold after that.
Sure.
And for me, that like that dawn twist is what marks the start of the third act in the never-ending rush for the end of the movie, and I did not see that coming at all. I did think at one point in time that, oh, Emma Stone's character, Michelle, is going to get out of this situation by convincing Dawn that, hey, you shouldn't be doing this, and that's how she was going to escape. That was a long leading theory of mine. And then when that started to happen, I was like, okay, I was right. Let's see how they unfold. And then Don kills himself, and I like lost it in the movie theater. I was like, what the hell?
You can see the build for it though. Like I wasn't completely surprised by it just purely because I could see that that was going to be a build. Like I wasn't certain that was going to happen, but there was a pretty evident build of if they took it in this route, I wouldn't be surprised because they're building it pretty naturally and it would make sense.
I mean, the
Don,
only really
Don
big moment was when he mentioned to Teddy that he was very sad after the castration because a symptom of castration is depression. That was the biggest moment that was like, okay, he's very sad and something's going on. I just thought that made him easier to manipulate.
Don is an interesting character because, like you said, he's the heart and soul of the movie. I said he was the heart and soul of the movie. I believe that he is. He's the only real, in my, other than like the cop, is the only normal person in this whole movie, and he barely gets any time to speak sometimes. Uh, which is also why when you lose him, it makes the film, you look at it and you go, well, I don't want any of these people to win. Even Teddy, who clearly by the end of the film, you know, he's been put through a lot. You know that like he is honestly on the right side of things, even though his motive and how he went about doing it is kind of entirely backwards. Um, that's the dilemma you're faced with the movie. And that's what something I do love about this is that Teddy is a good person and he's doing it for the right reason, but the way he went about doing it is kind of backwards. Which makes it really interesting throughout the whole film, especially again as you're playing with before you know the twist of she is an alien. Is he actually wrong? Is he right about this? Could he be entirely wrong? Could he just like the things that happened to his mom is probably real, and that he really did witness this? Like he knows that they exist and whatnot, but does he have the right person? Has he been doing it to the wrong person this whole time? That's something that I had been playing with the like the notion of the whole movie is he's been doing it to the wrong person the whole time, and the final shot was going to be something along the lines of Teddy dying, Emma Stone also dying some way somehow, and then the aliens would just be like in a spaceship somewhere in the sky monitoring the whole thing, and that it was actually somebody else. Maybe like even the cop friend was like an alien the whole time. You just had no idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, because I think, and it's funny. I again, I try to stay away from reviews of the movie, but I did see one like review of the movie about how the cop friend Casey is his name. They tried to add in the reviewer's eyes, an unnecessary like molestation story in there,
Yeah,
and they felt like it was kind of like shoehorned in there. I disagree. I think that that plot line is in there to make you further your belief that, oh, Teddy's just crazy. Not only did this happen to his mom, but he also got molested as a child and now is having to deal with the mental strain that comes with that, which only further pushed him into insanity. So, was it entirely necessary? I can't say that it was, but I do understand what they were going for in the sense of, okay, Casey molested him, and typically kids who get molested, if not handled properly, and clearly Teddy is not someone who's A, mentally sane to begin with, and also B, has a support structure that's going to help him through this. So it only further pushed him into insanity, which makes you believe that he is more insane than he is correct. Because the thing
sure.
is, you go into, and this was another insane twist for me that I do think got completely recontextualized by the ending of the movie, was when Michelle goes into his dissection chamber and it makes it seem like, oh, Teddy's just a serial killer. Like, this isn't the first time he's done this before, which is alluded to with the electricity scene where he says that, oh, I've seen electrical signals like this before. And you're like, what do you mean you've seen electrical signals like this before? Have you done this before? Very clearly, he has when you see other dissected bodies in his basement. And then Michelle asks Teddy and is like, how many of them were aliens? And he goes,
Sure.
two. And you're like, oh, he still is so crazy and believing it. But no, looking back, no, that is why he was so steadfast in his beliefs this whole time, is because he already was 100% certain going into this situation that he was correct, and Michelle was manipulating and in control of this situation the entire time. And the power dynamic gets completely flipped on its head after you realize that.
Sure. Yeah. Again, let's talk about the performances in this movie again, just because I love Jesse Plemons. I think he does an outstanding job here. I don't think he's going to win an Oscar for this. I think he'll be nominated. I don't think he's going to win an Oscar. Furthermore, for Emma Stone, I think it's the same thing. She's going to be nominated. She's not going to win. I think she does give a good performance here. It's not as good as the one she had in Poor Things, or I don't even think it's as good as the one that she did in La La Land. I think she has given equal to performances, but I think there's other performances this year that will get nominated and will win. Again, the actor who plays Don, theoretically, if he's not at least nominated, I might get upset, because he is a really well-written character. He's a well-acted, well-performed character. He deserves, at the very least, to be nominated.
Yeah, if anyone is nominated from this movie, it should be Adrian Delbis. He is the one that deserves, like, Jesse Plemons does a phenomenal job in this movie, and I would be surprised if he doesn't get the nomination. Emma Stone, same. I will say, out of the three main performances, while I do love her performance in this movie, she's probably the weaker of them, in my opinion. I think that she does a phenomenal job, but when put up against Jesse Plemons' performance and Adrian Delbis's performance, I think those two shine so insanely bright. And I think that, like, again, this is a really difficult year for the Oscars for me that I typically don't care about, but, like, I still stand by this opinion. I know you might disagree now that you have different movies that you like better. Not that you think I'm wrong, but just that you have different movies that you like better. I still think that the best acting performances should go to the cast of The Long Walk. Like, I think that at least one or two of those actors deserve the Oscar wins for their performances. However, it's really tough because I know One Battle After Another had some performances that maybe didn't work as well for me, but would probably take the lead for someone like you. This movie also had some really good performances that are probably going to be the head for some people. And so that's just where I don't know who's going to get nominated or win.
Sure. No,
And typically I don't care, but
right.
now I do, apparently.
Right. Look, I just, again, saying this film is it is a mind, it is a clusterfuck, a mind fuck. It is something that you watch from start to finish and you are going, what the hell is happening on this screen? Well, at the same time, there is a brilliance behind the film, and there was it was handled very well. I'm not saying it was handled with care. I don't know if it was or not, but it was handled very well, written very well, directed very well. Some of the cinematography in this film is really, really good, and the performances are inspiring performances, especially from the character of Don. A very inspiring performance from that actor. All in all, I'm glad you dragged me to the theaters to see that, because I never would have seen that, and thank God we chose not to do Star Wars Visions.
Hey, don't hate on Star Wars Visions. Star Wars Visions is good. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. I think, like, I've already touched on this, but, like, the escalation in Bugonia is just so expertly executed. I really do. I think, and you're going to hate me for saying this, I think the escalation of the plot of this movie is better than the escalation in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I genuinely believe that. Now, granted, we've already had lengthy conversations well before the podcast started about how I don't like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood nearly as much as you do. I can understand the strengths of that movie, but it falls into a similar category, like how I am not as big of a fan of One Battle After Another as someone like you are. It's just not my cup of tea. I think that Begonia and the way that it's, like, there is a slow start to establish our characters, but it never really is slow. You kind of start out at a good like 25%. You never start out at 0. You start out at about 25%, and then you end at 1,000 with Teddy's head being blown off and aliens being real.
Sure.
And I guess what are your thoughts? Like you say you predicted it, which is fine. Are you happy that they made that decision, or would you have Teddy? Would you have it
In the
rather been
context of the film, yes,
Teddy
I'm
been
happy.
wrong?
I'm happy they made the choices they did. I could have seen it going either way. I honestly, it's a trick question because I would have been happy either way, but I'm happy they made the choices they did.
Okay, because that again, that was the thing that was the most divisive for me out of this movie was that ending and just the way that it like just recontextualized everything.
When
I don't want to
you
keep saying the same words, but
when you think about it one way, it's diversive. But if you try to think about it the other way, it's also diversive. There was no clear-cut good ending. Either one would have been bad. If Teddy was wrong, it would have been, honestly, in my opinion, I don't think it would have been as good of an ending because you're following the character of Teddy the entire time, and then it makes you feel like you're on this journey for nothing, really. It creates an interesting idea, but then the movie ends with Teddy dying. This movie at least ends with a much more bizarre ending of, okay, kill all the humans. They're not worthy,
yeah.
you
Well,
know.
because I guess that's the actual biggest plot twist that I would be floored if you predicted of yeah, they just kill everyone. Like they allude to it a little bit with the images of the earth and it shoots it in a way that it just looks like earth, but then you see and you zoom out with the aliens that it's actually a flat earth that's being
Sure.
held in a capsule like Brainiac by these aliens, and
Sure.
then they just pop the bubble and kill everyone. And that kind of makes it clear that even throughout the movie, they did have like tells of this very clearly, but like the core message of this movie is that humans are destroying the world. Like
Yeah.
the main way that they explain through that is the bees, and then the alien overlords looking above us decide that okay, clearly humans have done irreparable damage to themselves and the world,
Sure.
and we need to just exterminate them. Which is definitely again like a acquired taste of an ending. Like I don't want to say more of a problem with them killing all the humans than I do with them actually being aliens real. I just think that that is definitely the one that I go back and forth on the most, as opposed to the like Michelle actually being an alien and then recontextualizing like the entire movie twist that happened.
Sure. Sure. But all in all, well acted, may get nominations. I don't think anything will really win. Writing may have a chance, but again, I think that goes to a film like The Long Walk or One Battle and After Another. I don't think it will. I don't think it'll win anything, but it'll get nominated for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we still have some strong movies to come out. Well,
We do.
we have some.
Frankenstein, which we didn't watch, is also a contender to be in that
Yeah, I've
regard
heard
as
pretty
well.
good things. I mean, Avatar is probably gonna get nominated for something. I don't know what, but it's gonna get
It, it'll
nominated for
it'll get
stuff.
nominated. It'll probably win for visual effects. I don't see anything else beating that this year.
I mean, The Running Man's got some really good reviews coming out of it. I don't think that's one that's gonna get nominated, but at least looks like it's going to be a good movie, which next week, since we're clearly wrapping up our thoughts on Begonia, unless you have anything else you wanna say, um,
No. Emma Stone good. Jesse Plemons good.
next week will be Now You See Me, Now You Don't, which is I love the Now You See Me movies. We've talked about this. I don't know if we've ever talked about it on the podcast before, but we've definitely talked about it
We
offline
have.
before about like I love the Now You See Me movies, and now that the third one's coming out after like goddamn nearly 10 years, it feels like
Yeah, I'm gonna have a fun time with it. I'm not expecting anything. However, there's been some very cringe humor in the trailer that's making me go, "Uh-oh, this may not be the best movie."
I will admit I am not as excited as I wish I was, and I fully blame the trailer. And I'm really, really hoping that the trailer is just trying to throw us off with what the core of this movie is. But if it's not, it'll be interesting. I'm seeing this one with a group of like 7 people because we've all seen all the Now You See Me movies together. And so I'm watching with like a group of 7 people, which will be exciting. And the other movie that we're watching on top of Now You See Me, Now You Don't is going to be The Running Man, the Glenn Powell movie that is the fourth Stephen King adaptation of the year in theaters, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But that will be our 2 movies next week. Carson, do you have anything to sign us off? I know you have a hard out in like 13 minutes, which is why,
I've
admittedly, we've been a little bit more rushed on our Bugonia than we
yeah,
typically would be.
I've got to get to the airport.
Yep.
uh no, I'm excited to see Now You See Me though. Again, as much as I think it is probably going to be a very, very mid movie, at least it'll be a fun time. I can't say that for a lot of films that have come out over the year. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, signing out for now. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Nerdy Nimrods podcast, the only podcast on the internet where your two favorite Nimrods talk all things nerdy. You can find us on all podcast hosting and streaming platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, freaking like Pandora. You can find us anywhere and everywhere that podcasts are hosted. You can find us on all social media platforms: Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram. On our TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Shorts, we post anime reviews, wrestling reviews, sometimes movie reviews to intrigue about what we talk about on the podcast, or maybe movies that we see that we don't end up talking about on the podcast for one reason or another. So definitely give us a follow at Nerdy Nimrods on all of those platforms. I already established what next week's gonna be, so look forward to that. Let us know your thoughts on both of these movies in the comments. Drop a like and follow. And as always, stay nerdy.